My name is LaShawn, and I have 2 boys.
I was doing pretty well. Every 2 weeks I had money to get me back and forth to work. My rent stayed paid. I kept my rent paid. All that was fine until all of a sudden the rent started, the rent increases started coming. I ended up having to go on public assistance, which I hated. After a while, I bounced from house to house. Eventually, the shelter, community action opened up. I went over there. I grabbed my kids, and we caught the bus, and with everything me and my kids had, bagged it up, and my kids, and we just moved into the shelter over there.
My name is Mandy. I'm a single mother, and I have 2 little girls. My life was very chaotic and unpredictable. There was just a lot of fighting in the house between my ex-husband and I. I didn't want my kids to have to deal with that. I wanted them to grow up happily and have a nice, stable living environment. I didn't know where we were going to live. Our family house was going into foreclosure, but even if it wasn't, I wasn't going to be able to live there. I couldn't even begin to start to pay the mortgage, and that's just the mortgage.
My name is Yvonne. I have 2 children, little girl Paris, who's 5, and a boy Demetrius, who's 12. My childhood was difficult because my mother was addicted to drugs and my dad is an alcoholic. There are 7 of us, and we all were split up for different reasons associated with our parents' addictions. I wanted things to be different for my children because I didn't have 2 parents growing up, and it didn't turn out so well, but I tried. I was living in New Orleans during Hurricane Katrina, and after that I found out I was pregnant with Paris, and my marriage was difficult because the closer it got to my due date, the more violent and abusive my husband became, and I ended up just asking him to leave. And we had mold growing through our walls about a year and a half after the hurricane that we didn't know was there. FEMA had cleared our apartment, and we thought it was safe for us to stay there. And by the time we started to see the mold grow through the walls, there weren't any options for us to move another place. The rent had skyrocketed at the properties that remained open, and most of them were condemned. So I moved back to the DC area because this is where I'm from originally, and I thought I had family who would help, but it didn't turn out that way. We bounced around from different family members to different friends to people who were just renting apartments and basements, until we ended up in Frederick with an old friend last year. And after staying with her for a little while, it just didn't work out. She was single, and she just wanted her space back. It was 3 additional people in her home. She just wasn't used to it, even though her heart was in the right place. Living in a shelter was horrible for me because it was a group living situation, and I absolutely hated it. I didn't want to be in that type of situation, especially with my children.
Our participants come from all backgrounds and all walks of life. LaShawn is a certified nursing assistant. Mandy has a college degree. Yvonne was in the U.S. military. And for a variety of reasons, they each have found themselves on a difficult journey without the support and resources they needed to care for themselves and their families. Like so many of us, our participants have journeyed through the peaks and valleys of human experience. Often, having fallen through the cracks, they truly have nowhere else to turn. They are chosen for the Advocates Program because they not only have the motivation to change their circumstances, but they each have a spirit of resilience. It is that spirit of resilience which allows them to journey through their circumstances, so that their circumstances inform their current life, yet not diminish it.
I don't want my kids growing up in a shelter because your kids are treated differently when you're in the shelter. And my 7-year-old, he kind of, well, my friends want to, they always want me to come over to their house, and they want to come over to our house, but Mommy, we don't have a house, and that bothers me. That bothered me. He deserves to have friends. It's not his fault that that we're in the situation is not his fault and he shouldn't be punished for it. I was outside with some other residents, and the manager said, we need you to come inside. They said, Advocates is on the phone for you. And I talked to Ann, and Ann said, well, we've been looking all over for you. She said, I remembered you because for 2 months straight, you called me. You called for 2 months. Crying. And we want you to come in for an interview with us. And so we did. We went through the whole application process. I was so happy. Because I really didn't know all what advocates did. I just knew that they said for 2 years, they put you in a place, and if you want to go to school, they'll help you go to school. Like the shelter was okay, but you know, have your own a place you can actually call home. You have a key, you open the door, and your kids are in their room, and you're in your room, and you have a kitchen. You don't have to worry about sharing your food. You know, nobody going in and stealing your food because this is your kitchen. This is your bedroom. And nobody's taking your kids' clothes. These are your clothes, your kids' clothes, and no one has access to this place unless you let them in. I said, but even if I'm not accepted into their program, I'm grateful for the opportunity that they gave to even listen to what brought me here. And if I have to spend my time here in the shelter, then fine, I'll do that. But I really want to be here because I feel I can really grow from this.
Like on some forms, it'll ask if I'm homeless, and I have to check that off, and sometimes I'm like, that just doesn't seem like me, you know? Technically, it is, you know, and I never really, you know, I came from, you know, good family, good background, because I never supported myself. I got married right out of college. My parents paid for me up until that point. Then my husband paid for everything after that. Well, one of the most important things that the Advocates program has given me is my case manager. I've had, Anne has been my case manager since my first day. And luckily for her, I don't need as much help as I did in the beginning, because I would call her a couple times every day, and she would come over like every other day. And I just, you know, I needed a lot of direction of what I should do.
5 years ago, I would have never thought that I would be homeless. I made enough money to pay rent and utilities and do extra things with my children and have money saved in the bank. I always envisioned homeless people of living under a bridge, or, you know, making a bed out of cardboard and sleeping in the streets, basically. I never, you know, thought that I would someday be in the category as being homeless. I worked every day, and I still didn't make enough money to support my family. The last employer that I had, I informed her that I needed time off for work to get TB testing done and different things done, to meet with a coordinator to get into a homeless shelter. And her mouth, you know, just fell open. She just looked at me and said, but you come to work every day. And I said, yes, but I still don't make enough money to support myself and my children. We were living in a hotel when I found out that we had got acceptance into the Advocates program, and actually that week would have been the last week that the hotel was paid up till. And I received my keys to our new home the day before the funding ran out. So it was just right down to the wire on that. If Advocates hadn't come through, I really didn't have any plans. I didn't know where we were going to live. I think we might have just stayed in my car for the most part. I have a membership to the local Y, and I knew that there were showers there, and I would just try to take showers there and make sure my kids were clean at least. But I don't really know how we were going to sleep or eat, but we would have been clean, and I don't know what else we would have done.
Our program provides 2 years of support services, including assistance with housing, education, job placement, and counseling. And during those 2 years, we help our participants to invest their spirit of resilience into reclaiming and reshaping their lives for themselves and for their families. Each of us is on life's journey. Every one of us, if we allow ourselves, will acknowledge that in no small way it was other people, strangers often, whose spirit of compassion and love for others bolstered our life. and believed in us in ways only others can believe. When our life's journey intersects with another, when we are able to see in another's struggle ourselves, it is in that moment that strangers become friends and companions on the journey. Thank you to all of you who have made the journey with advocates possible, as well as to those who will join us on the journey tonight. Your selflessness truly makes a difference.
Eventually, I got a job at Sunrise. I've been there for 2 months. In 3 months, after I get my 90-day evaluation, I can tell them that I'm interested in becoming a med tech, and they'll train you to become a med tech. So things are working, finally.
It's just so nice. Like, I know I'm gonna go home and have dinner at the kitchen table, and then I'm gonna clean it up and the kids are gonna go outside and play. But it's such a great thing to be able to pay for myself, you know? It really is. The biggest lesson that I've learned is that I can do it.
When I found out that we were accepted into the program, I can't put into words what emotions I was feeling at the time. I cried. I don't know what else to tell you. I was just so happy. I have a full-time job in a dental office. To have our own home after almost 5 years, it seems way longer than 5 years. It seems like a lifetime. It's comforting. You know, it's comforting, and I feel blessed, and I'm grateful that we have that.